Hi people, TS here. Welcome back to Living Blessed TV. Just doing a little video on what players I believe Arsenal need to sell in the summer. There's a lot of players at this club that need to go, and there's a big rebuilding job that needs to be done, and evidently it needs to be done this summer. Can't think about sentiment and whatnot when doing this. We just got to look at players in the squad that need to go, and that's the end of it. Simple as that. So what I'm going to do in this, I'm going to name some players which I believe need to go. Then I'm going to name some players that we could potentially bring in, to somewhat try and develop and benefit the squad. So starting off, the first couple players on my list, the reason I have them together is because they play the same position, is Kolasinac and Monreal. Now, Monreal for a while now, I've kind of thought that he needs to go, and I know he's got 1 year left on his contract, but I think it's time to get rid this summer. With Kolasinac, he can only play in the left wing back position, which we can't be relying on that for next season going forward if we're meant to be progressing as a club. And he's on some ridiculous wages as well, so personally I'd scrap the pair of them. The likes of players you could bring in alternatively, you've got Tierney from Celtic. Obviously he's quite rated, so you would be looking at spending a certain amount of money to bring him in. Of course, Chilwell from Leicester, you'd be he wouldn't come cheap, but again he'd be a player that definitely bolster us in that position. And then obviously the likes of Alaba, there's been some links about him. I'm not sure how true those are. Personally, with transfer rumours, I don't really tend to believe anything until they turn up at the club, and they've signed a contract. You see them holding the shirt, that sort of stuff. So I believe that all three of those left backs would bolster us, and they'd all three of them would be good at both playing the defensive part and of course pushing up and down that left hand side. So those are three players there that I believe are somewhat gettable. Well, not even somewhat, they are gettable, and especially if we clear out the other two, it gives us the room to improve. The next player I've got on the list is Mustafi. Now, I didn't really need to explain this one, it's a bit self-explanatory. He's an accident waiting to happen. Of recent, he's looked better when he plays at right back. Well, I'm not going into a full season of Mustafi playing at right back. He's proved he's not good enough, and it's time for him to go. Of course, we're not going to recoup the 35 odd mil that was spent on him. Well, there's some teams that would purchase him. Some teams maybe lower on in the Premier League or even in La Liga, where he was before we snapped him up. And then again with Mustafi, the sort of players that you can bring in to replace him, you've got the likes of Maguire from Leicester. Of course, Maguire won't come cheap, but he would definitely bolster our defence. I've seen a lot of people talk about Alderweireld from Spurs because he's got 1 year left and he'd probably be around 25 million. I don't see it happening, but he again would be another player that could bolster our defence. And then the two young defenders from RB Leipzig, Konate and Upamecano. Now they're both young, talented, gifted, and they can definitely push us on going forward. And then there's some players that's probably not as highly rated that would even do a better job in our defence. You're looking at the likes of Lewis Dunk, who of course played against us yesterday in the 1-1 draw. Even players like Johnny Evans, which people were laughing at that when we was linked to him, and of course I didn't want to be linked to him, but he does a better job than most of our defenders. No nonsense stuff. Rosette, not saying I want us to go and buy Johnny Evans this summer, but the first four players I've mentioned, I believe they will do a good job in our defence, and personally I think we need to buy 2 centre-halves this summer, because even Socrates of recently has shown that he can be suspect also. So yeah, I would hope to try bringing two centre halves this summer. I know it sounds like a lot, but there's a lot that needs to be done at the club if we're going to push forward and get anywhere. The next player on the list is Carl Jenkinson, although he's not like a first team sort of player, whatnot. Time for him to go. It's all good with him being an Arsenal fan and whatnot. There's many Arsenal fans that don't get to play for the club and earn a living from it, and he's just not good enough, and it's time for him to go. Although he's not a first team player, the sort of player I'd like to see come in as a right back would be the likes of someone like Wan-Bissaka from like Crystal Palace. Now, as you can see with a lot of the players I'm mentioning, they are players that are like, at lower clubs, some of them within the Premier League, some of them, of course, other leagues, but it goes to show that, again, not just with the club or with us, again, it goes to show that I'm not sure what it is exactly our scouts are doing, because all these clubs seem to be getting these players in for not so much money that, they can do a job and, they can push on from there. If I look at Hull, for example, they had Andrew Robinson. Liverpool went and bought Robinson for 10 mil. Now look at him now. He's a 30 million plus left back. So something our scouting network needs to look at as well, because teams like Liverpool can seem to find a guy like Robinson and bring him in, and he's doing a good job. And it doesn't seem like that's something that we're doing at the club. The next player I'd get rid of is Mohamed El-Neni. It's quite evident he's rarely featured this season. He was due to go in January, but I think Emery kept him as like kind of squad depth between then and the end of the season. But he's barely featured since then, and when he has featured, he hasn't played so well. So yeah, it'd be time to get rid of him. We need another strong defensive midfielder type of player in there. Two guys I can think of that come to head for me already. So like Doucouré from Watford and then Ndidi from Leicester. Again, these are players that if you put a certain value down, you can get them, and I believe they would both bolster our midfield. And then the next midfielder I would get rid of also is Granit Xhaka. Another two midfielders I can think of that you can bring in to replace him. We've got Frank Kessie and Amadou Diawara. Of course, Kessie and Diawara both play in Serie A, and some people say, well, the leagues are different and whatnot. You may not be able to adapt to the Prem. That's a good point, but at the same time, Jacques has proved over the 3 odd years that he's been here that he's not good enough, and it's time for him to go. And if we're gonna move on as a club, some of these players, like I said, we just gotta get rid, and bring in players that are somewhat of better quality. Maybe even some players in our youth setup maybe able to do somewhat of a better job, not as the first choice, but as a squad player and depth, etc. That's my thoughts on it anyways. Another player I'd get rid of is Alex Iwobi. It was quite evident that he really has no end product, and I don't know what to say with him, to be honest with you. It's a shame. Some people say, I'll keep him for another year, but it's like, keep him for another year for what? As an attacking sort of player, as a footballer, the one thing you should be comfortable with doing is putting the ball in the back of the net, and it's something he's not comfortable with doing. It's also when he gets into the final third, it's that final decision of passing, crossing, all that stuff he's not certain of. So personally, I would sell. I think even the likes of Reece Nelson already, when he comes back from loan, to do a better job than him next season. Even players like Saka. Of course, if it's to go out and buy someone, I would go with the guys who were linked with in the January transfer window, the likes of Perisic, Carrasco. I believe those guys are gettable, and again, it's down to the board to give Emery the funds available to bolster the squad. Of course, he also has to see what money he can get from selling these players, but he needs to be given the funds and the capacity to bring in these players in to get better, from the squad overall, in my personal opinion. Um, and the final two players on my list for today are Ozil and Mkhitaryan. Now, I don't want none of the Ozil fanatics to, say, try justify it. It's quite evident. As much as I love Mesut Ozil, he, he he doesn't do it consistently enough, and I think it's best for both him and the club if he moves on. Maybe he finds a move in somewhere like China, maybe he goes to Turkey or somewhere like that. Like a Fenerbahce or something like that. That might be a good shout for him. And you know, again, when you look at players to bring in, there's the guy Saar. He played against us. The guy who plays for Rennes. He played against us earlier on this season Europa League. I'm not saying he plays as that 10 role, but I don't really see us playing with a 10 most of the time. We're normally playing with whips, so I think Saar would be a good player for the wing. Ryan Fraser from Bournemouth, he's a decent winger. Someone we already have that's currently on loan, Smith Rowe. Not saying he's going to step up and be the first choice player next season, but he can definitely, feature in and around the team. And he was doing well featuring in and around the team earlier on in the season. And when he went on loan, I thought it was a good move. But over recent, I thought that we've kind of missed a player like him. And it's a bit of a shame, but I think Smith Rowe would definitely do some form of a job for us. Again, Nicolas Pepe and Wilfred Zaha. Now, I'm not saying we're going to go and buy 4, wide attacking players, but we need to do something. And like I said before, the money needs to be given to Emery to go and better the squad. And at the same time, Emery and Juan Carlos and the coaches team and all that, no matter what happens over this summer, our defensive side of things need to be worked on, because it seems like there's some things they worked on earlier in the season where we wasn't conceding goals from like corners and that for quite a long time. But the way that the players capitulate, I understand that some people say it's old habits and that, but as a defender, you should know how to defend. If we go down to 10 men, you should know how to park the bus and be solid and that. And if you don't, then that's down to our head coach and the coaching team to work on that. The likes of Steve Bold, he can clear off this summer as well, to be honest with you. I know he's meant to be the defensive coach. He can clear off, to be honest with you, because clearly nothing's happening with the defence, so probably best he goes as well with a lot of these players. There's probably some players that I've missed out on the list. It's come out that Welbeck's leaving at the end of the season for free. And it's things like that which kind of annoy me with this club. Like with the Ramsey situation, of course, he's leaving for free, going to Juventus over the whole contract fiasco. With Czechi's retiring, with Welbeck, he got injured. Now, not saying that I think Welbeck's a world beater at the club, but it would have made more sense to maybe tie him down to a 1 or 2 year contract and then sell him, get some sort of money for him. It just seems like the business aspect of the club it's not there, and we don't really seem to have many assets like a Liverpool or a Spurs as an example. I use Spurs more as an example. If Real Madrid wanted to come buy Harry Kane or Dele Alli or Son tomorrow, they're going to be looking minimum £100 million per player, which of course they could then reinvest into the squad. There isn't really no world class commodity at Arsenal that we can demand a high value for and get rid of. There was some talks earlier in the season that PSG were looking at a 60 million move for Guendouzi, and it wouldn't surprise me if a team came in with a mad move like that for Guendouzi. It wouldn't surprise me if the board accept, because it's a big transfer window for them ahead this summer, because if things don't go well, the pressure's going to be on Emery even more. And of course, if Emery comes up with a kind of similar truth to how he did in January, said, "Oh, I can only do loan signings," this, what's it called? The board's going to be under a lot of pressure. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of money they give him. But based on the players I've named that need to go and players that I think we can bring in, there are probably some players, that can do a better job than some of the players I've mentioned. But I believe if we was to add those sort of players to the squad, that'll definitely bolster us, whether that is we're in the Europa League or Champions League next season. But I think that's what we need to do going forward, and that's it really. I think if we can work on our overall squad, clear out a lot of the deadwood, bring in some new players, bring them in early into the transfer window, so that of course they can work with the squad all throughout the pre-season, and be ready and drilled and ready to go come the first game of the new season. I think we stand a good chance of being in a better position come next season. But that's just my thoughts and everything. Of course, let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on it, what players you would sell, what players you would like to see us bring in, and what you believe we can do in the summer transfer window, and of course next season. That's all from myself. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you later.